This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Henry Apple is waiting on us again with the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Henry, thank you so much for making some time for us this morning. Just kind of, if you could, treetop the impact of Proposals 7 and 8 that impact high schools across the state that passed earlier this week.
Most definitely. Now, number 7 is basically it's going to put limits of the number of teams in a classification, which is what we did not have last year or will have this year. You know, what they did last year is they put all the public schools in a classification. Then wherever the private schools or non-public, however you want to say it, you know, wherever what classification they land in, they just added them, and it calls for some uneven conferences. Basically, you look at 6A, they had one conference with 10 teams and one with 9 teams, which led to odd scheduling, open dates, and bad weeks. So what proposal number 7 does, now it's going to say, hey, 7A, you're only going to have 16 teams. 6A, you're only going to have 16 teams. 5A, 32. 4A and 3A will have 48 apiece, and 2A will get the rest. And basically, it's going to help with scheduling. You won't have those open dates on a week 8 or week 9 anymore, because the conferences now can say, hey, weeks number 4 through 10, that is our conference games. Set. And the thing of it is now is how they're going to do it is if a non-public or private school, however you want to pronounce it, goes into a classification, it allows a public school to drop in a classification. So here's what's going to happen. Starting next year, you're going to have 3 public schools fall to 5A. Mm-hmm. You're going to have 4 fall to from 5A to 4A. And basically Northwest Arkansas, that one hits directly because the 3 of the 4 schools moving are Huntsville, Gravette, and Prairie Grove. So, and then you will have 6 schools fall from 4A to 3A, and 7 schools fall from 3A to 2A.
All right. So when we think about that, Henry, I think when you look at, you mentioned the population base and the growth in Northwest Arkansas, and you mentioned places like Gravette and Prairie Grove who have seen a boom in their population, their towns, because of available land, and that's where housing developments are happening, so therefore their schools are growing. So we've seen a lot of change in schools in classification. I think one of the conferences, just reading some of your writing, that's probably going to undergo the most change, and I think about towns like Harrison that are listening this morning, and places that are in that 5A West. Alma would be another one. And, the 5A West apparently is going to be one of those conferences in football that may have the most change in the 5A level.
Most definitely, because the way it was currently going to be set up, the 5A West was going to be Northwest Arkansas heavy. You had Huntsville, you had Gravette, Prairie Grove, Pea Ridge, Farmington, and Shiloh Christian, and then you would have possibly Harrison, Alma, and maybe Clarksville as the 19th. Well, now, because all this changes, you're going to lose Huntsville, you're going to lose Gravette, you're going to lose Prairie Grove. You may lose Shiloh Christian, and we haven't talked about that later. So then you're going to have to see them go more east and pick up. Now you know that Clarksville's definitely going to be in the 5A West, but also Morrilton, Greenbrier, and possibly even Bologna.
Yeah. So let's go back and kind of rewind to why all of this was necessary and the equity factor points. I mean, I've been getting the phrasing just right with the private schools and how they go about this, but that was really where this began 4 or 5 years ago, when private schools began getting points based on the results of their season because they don't have district boundaries and the way they classify those schools. And a lot of this was, let's just be honest, it was PA-based, it was Shiloh-based, it was Harding Academy-based because of their success in football, trying to figure out how to make it more equitable. Explain kind of the origin of all of this and what has led us to this point with this new proposal 7 and 8 that will be enacted for the next cycle.
Definitely. It first started off, this is based off of, they said they went to a lot of states that also uses these equity points program. I think Oklahoma uses it. Alabama uses it. So they went to several states and said, hey, how do you guys take care of your private schools? And they came up with this formula that started, actually, they started compiling points with the last school year. Private schools can get 1 point if they have a winning conference record. If they win a state playoff game, you get 2 points. If you reach the state championship game, you get 3 points. And if you win a state championship, you get 4 points. And the maximum you can get is 4 points per season. Now, proposal number 8, what it did, the original equity factor was a 4-year plan. And you could get, if a team got 10 or more points over 4 years, you went up a classification. Well, now it's going to change it to where you compile points every 2 years, and you only get 5 points to move up.
Yeah.
So it cut those things in half.
And it aligns it with the cycles of reclassification every 2 years. So it keeps it in lockstep with the classification system.
Right, and that's basically what this was done. They wanted to make everybody on the same page, whether you're a charter school, a public school, a private school, whatever, you're going to get reclassified every 2 years. Mm-hmm. But one thing that was not changed in this was they cut how many points you can get to go up a class in half. They cut the time frame in half. What they did not cut was the amount of points you can get a year. So, say, for instance, we're going to start looking at last year. Pulaski Academy won the 6A state championship. They got 4 points out of that. That means this year, all they have to do is get a winning conference record. They get 1 point, and they're up in the 7A.
Okay.
Shiloh Christian and Harding Academy are in the same boat. They both reached the state runner-ups in 5A and 4A last year. Well, now all they have to do is win a playoff game, and they're up in the next classification, whether it's Shiloh in 6A or Harding Academy in 5A, and so on.
Henry Apple, Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, with us on the McClarty-Daniel Hotline, talking about some recent changes enacted by the governing body of the Arkansas Activities Association that will affect high school football really in conferences and classifications across the state. So I know we have people listening in Fort Smith right now that are wondering about Northside and Southside. They have been both 7A schools, but in different conferences in recent years. What will these changes do moving forward for Northside and Southside as far as being paired in the same conference, which, for the last 4 years, I guess it's been, they have not been. Will they remain in the same classification moving forward? And will they get back into the same conference together at some point?
As far as football in the same conference, that's not looking likely because they've got to keep it balanced 8 and 8 for football purposes because you don't want those open dates in weeks 4 through 10. So keeping that. So as of right now, Northside will remain in the Central, and Southside will remain in the West. And people wonder why that's happened. That was because of a difference of 1.6 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So with the way the mileage works. Now, in this next year is going to determine a lot of things. It's not going to affect them if let's say one private school moves up. And the easier one is obviously Pulaski Academy. If it moves up, Jonesboro moves down to 6A. But if a second private school, whether it's Little Rock Catholic or Little Rock Christian, reaches the state championship game in 6A, they will get the points necessary to move up to 7A, and that is going to cause Fort Smith Southside to drop to 6A. So you could be looking at Northside and Southside being in the different classifications for the first time since 1980.
And we should clarify that the reason it would be Southside, Jonesboro and Southside are the two smallest schools by student count numbers.
Just over like 1,200, right?
That's
the reason. We're not singling out Southside or Jonesboro. That's based on the student population number. So that leads me to ask this question, Henry: Should Proposal 7, which limited the 7A and the 6A to 16 teams, Should that be looked at some point? And maybe, and also when you factor in the difficulty of scheduling non-conference games in weeks 0 through 3, should 7A and 6A possibly grow to 18 teams at some point? And that would limit the responsibility of trying to schedule those non-conference games and maybe provide a little more balance near the top.
That could be looked at because that's actually something, in talking to Fort Smith athletic director Mike Beaumont about this, he didn't mind 8 passing, but he did not want 7 to pass because had 8 just passed. No, we're not looking at proposal number 7. We're looking at proposal number 8, the equity factor with the private schools. Had Pulaski Academy moved up, that's all it would have taken, and got a 17th team. Of course, it would make 9 in the West and 8 in the Central because Northside would have moved to the West. That's where you're talking about an 18th team could have really worked because you've got 9 and 9. Well, you can schedule the non-conference games in there, whoever, or,
generally,
it'd be a little difficult.
Yeah, generally schools only have to play a local rival out of their conference one time a year. Every team seemingly has that other team down the road they need to play, so it allow room for that still.
Correctly, you've got a couple of non-conference games you can get in, and if you're a north side or a south side, hey, you can get Greenwood or you can get Van Buren or somebody like that. Would would be a good gate game.
Yeah, and so to bottom line this 7 and 8 pass. How does it also affect the schools in Northwest Arkansas, the Bentonvilles, the Rogers, the Springdale schools that are at the top of the list for student count and student population? It seems like the effect on those schools are minimal right now.
Right now it's not because the only one affected basically that could even get affected is Southside if 2 private schools move up. The rest of the schools in Northwest Arkansas, as of the Class 7A, they're going to be untouched in almost every sport because nobody up here is going to move up here.
All right, Henry, that's a really good breakdown. I know some of that can get kind of inside the weeds, but I think people are very interested in what's going on because, like we've said, man, it's going to affect every classification. It's going to have a ripple effect moving down with teams like you mentioned, Huntsville and Gravette and Prairie Grove. They're going to move classifications based on their growth, but if it's capped at 16 in 7A and 16 teams in 6A, there's only so much room. When the music stops, there's only so many chairs. Somebody's got to move out, and there's going to be a ripple effect to this legislation within our state.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, proposal number 7, the ripple effect happened immediately. We already have schools that know, hey, we were supposed to be in this one classification, but now we're fixing to drop into a lower classification, and some of them are saying thank you very much. But as far as number 8, we won't know the ripple effect then until we either get into October or November or even December when the state championship games play out.
Yeah, it'll be big. All right, Henry, thanks for your time this morning, and maybe we'll catch up as we get closer to week 0 and some high school football.
Sounds good.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.